It's okay. They're used to my brand of humor, so they'll love you. Um, we are here today. We've got hold on. Let me turn the volume off there. We've got Neal Fox with us, and he is just one of my new favorite finds. And I've been plugging him for a while with you guys, showing you videos and everything, um, because I love his stuff. And so I've got him here. And if you are on, say hello in the Rumble Rant section. Let me bring up the restream so I can see if anybody chats on Facebook, or I think we're on my Facebook author page, and I know we're on YouTube. So we'll mind our P's and Q's so neither one of us gets thrown off there.
Our F's and S's too.
That's exactly right. So Neal, how are you?
I have no problem with that.
All right. So where do you live? Give me your basics.
I'm here. Go in my
You're
home
there?
in Florida.
In Florida.
Florida. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. We also say Farhead and Orange, but
yeah,
these people down here don't.
My aunt lives down there. We were down there. Was it last summer before? We were in Cocoa Beach. I did a talk on my near-death experience there. So we love. Other than the humidity, I'd move.
But it's beautiful right now in the winter. Yeah. In the summer, it's still okay as long as the electricity stays on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. But we went to. I did was in a documentary for. Craig McMahon did a film called Death and Back 2. And so I was in that documentary, and we flew to Phoenix for that. And I'd never been, that far west. And it was crazy. I mean, it was 113 degrees. And I'm standing on the sidewalk. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's balls hot and I can breathe. I can, this was after COVID, so I struggle with that. But it was just great. So I thought, man, if I had to move.
What country are you in?
We're in Kentucky.
Kentucky. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, growing up in Brooklyn, there's New York, there's California, and then there's some other stuff in the middle. Why?
Yeah, that's right. You're like, there's other states that exist besides these?
Yeah, they just look like a quilt,
Yeah. How long have you been out of New York?
We left New York in 31. We left New York in 81, 26 years, I think.
And you kept the accent.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I mean, like I'm from the Midwest. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No.
Same Seinfeld. But no,
yeah.
I went to, in all that time we're in San Diego, people kept saying, my wife and I had it, and we didn't think we had an accent at all, and like I thought I was losing it to my parents and find out how I'm supposed to sound.
So what took you out of the New York area? I imagine that's probably the easier place to do the kind of work you do.
Oh, that was so long ago. I wasn't doing the kind of work that I ended up doing. I mean, we were 3 record labels back in the 70s. And so that was good for that. What took me out of New York? I was looking for a parking spot, and they kept circling wider and wider. Eventually, we hit California. Pull over.
You're like, this is perfect. It's just a little bit of a walk.
Yeah, nice weather, Jeez.
For sure. So you've kind of lived in the liberal, Paul K., welcome. Kind of lived in the liberal bastions of the world, and now you're in DeSantis's Florida. But of course, you've been there for a while.
Yeah, we moved out here 5 maybe, or whenever the housing bubble hit. We sold our house just as they started announcing the bubble had burst. So we sold it to the first people, and we were basically moving out to Florida to take care of my parents.
Oh, nice.
So we moved out there. I had a studio in Boca Raton for a while. We lived out just north. And my parents died about 10 years ago, I think.
Oh, geez.
So we moved to Florida, the west coast of the East Coast. I get very confused. That's why I don't leave the house much.
But you're doing, have you been doing music all this time, or did you have just a day job before that?
I had two day jobs in my life. Yeah, I've been doing music. My first professional gig was when I was 14. So,
Oh, wow.
I've been basically making a living as a musician in one form or another. And that was fun. But I played weddings and college. I played nightclubs every night, mostly out on Long Island, sometimes in New York. And then I got into a lawsuit, but it had something to do with my producers, who were also my managers, and they got me on Columbia and RCA and Polydor back in the 70s. I was on those three labels. Out, and then I got into the jingle business by accident, and because I wasn't making any money being on Columbia or RCA,
Yeah.
So it was $1 for writing and singing on jingles. Some of them were national jingles, But then I got into a lawsuit, which made that come to a stop. So that's when I decided I'm looking for parking spots. Let's get out of here. So we just left with very little money. We were going, and that's basically why we left New York. But when I got out to we had no jobs and money was running out, and I felt it was like a factory down in San Diego. Excuse me, and I, there and a bunch of jingles that were national spots, and I said, "Give me a job." And said, "Well, we don't really, how about part-time?" So I started working there. Long story, way too long. So I worked there for a few years doing everything from pig drug commercials to shopping malls and card. Mall with it all was a phrase I never want to hear again. More selection, more quality. Anyway,
That's
two of the guys from that company, we formed our own company called Patterson, Walls, and Fox. And we started doing some, we did the music for Dan Rather, CBS Evening News.
Oh, wow.
200 spots for NBC promo spots and movies of the week. We did Disney and Coca-Cola, all the people that I was doing jingles for. This is about 20 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. The world's changed a lot in 20 years.
We didn't know anything about wokeness back then. That's fairly new. Job from NBC was a thrill because it meant some money, big.
Oh, sure.
I pretty much hated every minute of it because there was no life.
Yeah.
You had built a studio in my 3-car garage, and it was all soundproofed, and it was our studio, and but I had no life. I was working.
Yeah.
So I would try to get a weekend to do something, and we'd get a call at 5:00 on a Friday by Monday, and you don't say no to NBC because if you do,
oh gosh,
you're told. And there's no guarantee you even get the spot because they're excuse the expression, bank.
Yeah.
They call in all the big shots, all the big jingle companies and writers waiting for it. So we had to do our best work over the weekend, get the best musicians we could get, and get it to them before Monday morning. So there goes the weekend.
With no guarantee of them picking it up.
No guarantee at all. And sometimes you don't even get paid for the demo sometimes.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, you got to pay those musicians and.
Yeah. And a lot of times they would pay us, a few $100 or $1,000, but, we didn't make any profit on that. That was just to cover the musician. But then when we got CBS job for Dan Rather. That was 3 hit records. I mean, that was amazing. My partner, he was the guy that was sort of the John Williams of the company.
Yeah.
I was more of the synthesizer rock pop guy. I did some orchestral stuff, but it was mostly using samples and orchestral. He would fill it out and go conduct the orchestra, because he did film scoring. So the Dan Rather stuff, he actually went to Abbey Road Studios in England to use the London, and then he'd bring back the tracks, and I would co-produce it with him and write some more stuff for CBS. You know, a lot of times we had to add things to the orchestra to make it sound better.
Sure, to fill it out, yeah.
But once we got that, now I was one of 5 composers, CBS Evening News, the opening music. A lot of people don't even realize there's music on a news show.
I'm going through my brain trying to think, what was this music? Why do I not, you know, it just becomes part of that soundtrack of your life, and you'd know it if you heard it.
You don't listen to the music, the show starts and you listen to Dan or whoever's talking.
Sure.
But complete orchestrated intro music, and then like a vamp while he speaks to today's news, blah, blah, BS. And then he would give the news, and then when he'd go to commercial or come little, they call them bumpers, you know, to take them out, to take them in.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're seconds long or 10 seconds long, and they would fade it out and then go into a commercial. But 5 writers, I made more money on that thing than on a hit record. And I'll try to keep this short, because this whole thing is like a major...
Hey, wait. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to click you off and then click you back on, because your audio is crackly. Hold on just a second.
Okay.
Okay, guys, give me a minute. I'm going to try to bring him back in and see if that will help his audio. Well, now if it'll let me do it. Okay, let's see if that's better.
Testing 1, 2. How's this?
I don't know why it's crackly. Okay? Maybe just your connection.
Yeah, or the internet. You know, unfortunately, I'm not.
That's what I'm thinking is the internet.
Wired. So this is going. What do you call it?
Yeah, it's Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi. Thank you.
Yeah, I so relate to you on the technical things. I don't know how you make all the little videos and everything. I'm watching them, and you know, I'm dissecting. I'm like, okay, that's a layer and that's a layer. Just a little bit that I know from just a little bit that I've done, and I think, man, is he drawing part of that, or you know, I don't know how you handle all that technology. I don't think 20 years from now I would be able to pick it up.
Well, you know, you're right, because very young I wanted to be a cartoonist, so I've been drawing all my life, and. 1921. It took me 3 years. I created a one-man show, and I was very sick when I was doing this. That's another story too. But I couldn't even sing. But I created a show, a one-man show, that had me screen on stage. I never did anything like this in my life. So this is back the doing animation, for instance, and video on was not the easiest thing in the world. So I learned how to animate real quick. Manuals up to here, you know.
Yeah.
And I put the show together. I created all the songs, and for each song, because I was going to be live on stage, singing and playing live to a track and video that was in sync. And we had like a 9-foot screen, and I performed for about 12 days each place. But I was sick as a dog when I was doing that. It took me 3 years to get over.
Oh my God.
And we thought I was dying. I mean, we had to stuff a hamburger stage. It was just so I had
you had to stuff what?
Hamburger into my mouth going out on stage, just so I had the strength to do the show. It was weird, but that's a whole nother story.
willing to be down that long.
How's the sound now, by the way?
It's the same. I can try. We can try having you come back in with the link and see if we get a better connection the second time. Do you want to try that?
Yeah, just tell me what I got to do before.
So just, I think just leave and then come back through the link that I sent you.
Okay.
And I'll entertain these people till you get back.
Okay. Yeah, sing one of my songs.
I'll do it. You don't want me singing. I'll show him one though. We'll see in a minute. Okay, guys, I'm going to show you one of his videos while we try to get him squared away. Hold on. With the sound. I know that's frustrating, but he is just a delightful character. Share system audio. I'm going to play one of his songs for you.
You have the right to believe what you believe. You have the right. It's a natural part of you. You have the right to soar above the clouds and reach new heights. Any dream you can pursue. You can stand like a beacon in the night and be free to dream what might. You have the right to create what you conceive. You have the right to possess the things you own.
Settle down.
You have the right to speak up even in the darkest night. Even if you stand alone, when it seems like there's no one else in sight. One soul turns on the light. You have the right. There's a man over there, he doesn't care to look like me. He's bowing and praying to a God I never see. But he's a good man, a right man with respect for you and me. No matter how strange to us, he has the right to be. Girl about 5, I don't remember her name. She might be still alive, she might not look the same. You see, slavery never died, it's alive and well. The slavers don't believe in rights, they come straight from hell. We mustn't look away, I know it's hard to do, but she's everyone's child, it's up to me and you. Tyrannies never last when people take a stand. The message will be telecast, we're taking back this land. The biggest ones will cower as we cut them down to size. They keep on getting smaller when we look them in the eyes. Know your rights and you can walk in the sun. These rights are for you and they're for everyone. Teach them in the schools till freedom rules the day. Cause no one has the right.
Favorite part.
Take these rights away. You have the right to be free and live in peace. You have the right to protect the ones you love. You have the right to gather and express and bring to light. to the thoughts you're thinking of, and the dreams that we dream are in our sight. For these truths we'll stand and fight. You have the right.
Oh, great crescendo.
To be free and live in peace, you have the right to protect the ones you love. You have the right to gather and express and bring to light to the thoughts you're thinking of, and the dreams that we dream are in our sights. For these truths we'll stand and fight. You have the right. You have the right, the right.
Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, I love that one so much. Okay, let me stop that share and we'll unmute you. There we go. And turn this
Hello.
down. There he is. That seems
You
better.
know, something happened. Yeah, you're for me.
Am I allowed?
Yeah, no, you're allowed. You're not allowed.
Okay, is that better? I have to tell you why.
No, actually, it was better louder.
Go. Okay, good. I have to tell you,
I don't
I
know if
love that
that's gonna-
song. No, it's good. I love that song so much because I remember the Berlin Wall and I remember Tiananmen Square.
Mm.
And I remember, I don't know what year Tiananmen Square was. I blanked out when it was up there. But I remember seeing that. And it is still, it stands the test of time. That person, that one person, standing in front of that tank, refusing to move. And I thought, man, have we come into a time where that's where we are, where so many of us have to make that decision? Are we going to stand up or are we going to be quiet and just let this whole thing roll over us? And, I was telling you before we started that I, had this moment where I got sick and I was like, you know what? I have to tell this story. Most of the country hasn't seen COVID yet. And I'm going to share my story. And I had kept that story and my near-death experience apart for a really long time because I thought, there's just the inevitable politicization of COVID that you can't really avoid. And I thought the people who follow me for my near-death experience are kind of escaping from all of that sort of thing. So I didn't want to combine the two. And I did an interview with, it's going to fall right out of my head. It's the fellow that used to design with Donna Karan. He Noel Wu invited me on to do an interview with him. And for some reason, I was talking about COVID and the protocol and everything that I had worked on. And I brought up that I'd had a near-death experience just in passing and, gave this little short thing. And he's like, wait, no, let's talk about that. And it was the first moment I had put them together. And I think that video got 23,000 views. And it was so funny because I thought, you know what? People aren't fragmented. People do have political ideas. They do have opinions about what's going on. They do see the injustice and just the insanity that this world has become. And I can't separate it anymore. And if I have to separate it, I can't talk about either. I can't live divided like that. And so there was that moment where a friend said to me, he said, you know what? I wondered when you were going to pull these two things together. And you did it. And you did it beautifully. And your story just resonates so much more now that you're not dividing it. And I'm like, okay, it's funny. Somebody just gives you that little bit of encouragement and it pushes you. And I see you, because it sounds like you've not always, well, we used to live in a normal world, so there was no need for us all to have really strong political opinions. We all had opinions, but they weren't anything that would divide us, and now I'm like, it's funny because I walk outside and it looks like a normal world, and then you turn the TV on and it's something completely different. And I'm like, this isn't what I'm seeing where I live. I don't know where all this is happening, but it's not happening here.
It appeared to be a normal world because everything was. I think the only thing different now since, say, 2020 was all of a sudden the veil was lifted off, seeing how abnormal it really is.
Yeah, I'm
It's been
shocked daily. Like never have we lived in a time where the news cycle moves faster than I can get to it in one show a week. It used to be you'd have slow news days and they do cooking segments on shows. I don't know what they do now because I don't watch. Most of my media is alternative at this point, but I now I'm like, oh my gosh, this is old news by Thursday when I get to it. And the news is so big. It's huge and you can see it all kind of connecting, whereas before it seemed real fragmented, and that seemed like a really bad thing, but it was kind of on its own. And now you're kind of seeing these tendrils tying things together, and it boggles the mind.
Also back then that the corporate news media was giving us the right news, that they were things. So now all of a sudden you have to do your own research and you have to find people that you agree or whatever.
Right.
It's just
and you're maligned for that. There's like judgment. Oh, you're one of those people who does their own research. I'm like, what?
Right. Oh, did you hear that on the internet? Well, that was
like I take my advice from Facebook. I'm like, no, I'm reading peer-reviewed studies. What are you reading? And those are even garbage science half the time.
But it's great practice on how you just know that if you say one tiny little word wrong, they're going to thing you say after that.
Right. Isn't it funny to you that like, I'll say so-and-so was on Tucker Carlson, and then that person, there's no credibility. There's nothing that person could write an affidavit that the grass is green and no one would believe him because that person had been on the Tucker Carlson show. And I'm like, has it occurred to you that they're on Tucker because they can't go on anywhere else? And don't you wonder about that? Like, do you really think these people are so dedicated to the truth that that's just all misinformation they're filtering out so you won't have to see it? I mean, at some point you have to start asking yourself. People will say to me, well, how do you know that? Why am I not hearing about this on the news? I'm like, indeed, why aren't you? Why aren't you wondering that? Why do you keep listening when what you're getting is useless information?
Yeah. I mean, I'm amazed all the time because of the kind of, I guess you'd call it it's a job, sort of. I mean, I love doing it, but I kind of have to keep it possible. But I'm not really an expert on politics or economics or anything like that. And I'm a songwriter, basically. But I can't write a song that's, I've written just silly or some love songs that I really like. But I just, a song that doesn't have a message. When I see what's going on in the world, it has to be something that's relevant, Sure. Big plug for this song I wrote maybe 2 or 3 months ago. My latest message from Shanghai. I don't know if you saw that one yet.
Yes, it kills me, especially considering what's happened in the last week.
I know. It's become even bigger news, and I saw that, and a lot of people, here's a great thing. You ought to write a song about this. But what they don't realize is when I see something in the news, whip out a song and produce it and do a video, and by the time a month or two, if it's out of the news already, then I just wasted 2 months of my time.
Yeah.
You pick and choose what
that's true.
I'm going to write about. It's not like I'm a folk singer. I can get up there with a guitar, something into the iPad or something. Like that, and it's done. Videos they take weeks because I'm doing it all myself. So I have to be watching this stuff and watching it and deciding, is this worthy of a song? See what develops, and is it going to be news by the time I finish?
Right.
And
what the story is right then. Then just looking at like the Sam Bankman-Fried and the FTX thing, what that initial story was has completely blown up in the time it would have taken you to make one video about it. The whole story is different now.
Yeah. And just writing a song takes a while. and then doing a video takes maybe 3 or 4 times longer than that.
It does. People
So-
don't realize. That's why I live stream. I hate editing. Editing takes 5 times as long as it does just to live stream a video. I'm like, look, people know me. They've followed me for a while. They are very accepting of my horrible tech skills. And so they'll be forgiving of a live stream being off or something like that. But you can't sit on something for 4 or 5 days to edit it, and that's what it takes if you're looking at a 2-hour video. Because then by the time you get it to them, it's old.
Yeah.
You almost have to live stream everything. I don't know how you would do it as a musician. And I kind of noticed, your topics are topics that run through. They're not really new issues. They're just issues that we're just now hearing about. So, what's going on in China is not new. People are just paying attention. So it gives you this opportunity to, to put music to it. And it adds so much. We've been watching your music for a couple of weeks and the Good in Us, that one I found completely by accident. And I remember the night I found it, I was sitting up late and I was waiting on a video to upload and I was just going through and it had like recommended videos and that one came up. And so I watched it and I sat and cried and I was like, as somebody who's had a near-death experience, has been in the presence of God, who understands that we're all connected. And, what hurts you hurts me, whether I realize it or not. And what hurts the person that I don't know hurts me, whether it diminishes us all. And I was just the obscenity of the way we're being played against each other, by totally, things you couldn't change if you want to. And I remember I asked a friend, I said, as a person of color, what do you think about this other movement, which I won't put a word to, this other movement taking over your movement? You've worked so hard to get the civil rights that you have today. And it's been hard won. And now you've got this other group that I don't know how somehow, being transgender is the same as being Black. Like, as far as I know, you're not Black fluid. Every day you wake up and you're Black. You can't, it doesn't shift from day to day. How did these two things get put together? And do you feel like it is that this is how you want to be represented going forward? And I think it's just, and it was funny because the person said to me, well, you make this mistake of assuming that we all are part of that one group, that, as Black people, we all belong to that group. We don't, just like you don't belong to some certain group. And no, I don't agree with that. And I feel like our movement's being hijacked, but what can we do? And I thought, wow, it must be weird to wake up and have had that struggle your whole life. And had to overcome it, and then to wake up one day and the whole movement's been taken over.
Yeah, by Marxists.
Yeah,
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's become this violent, from, if you look at the roots of that movement and Martin Luther King and what he endured, I mean, he's a hero to all of us. I don't care what your color is. Most people would consider him a hero, and I'm like, they're destroying that movement that was so beautiful and brought so much change.
The whole thing now, it is so insane that I mean, the whole thing about what is a woman? What do you identify as? What are your pronoun? You call somebody they, and it's one person. You're looking around. Where's the other guy?
Especially if you're reading something. I'm reading back. I'm like, wait, who's the other person? I'm just now figuring that out. I'm like, oh, that person considers themselves to be plural. Okay, well, that kind of messes up the whole pair. I'm a writer, so that totally messed me up.
Yeah, so insane. And I think there's a lot more people that realize it's insane than we're seeing. That's the saving grace, is to know that we're seeing the headlines, we're seeing the craziness, and there's too much of it. There's a lot of it, but I think there's a lot more. I are a little bit timid and afraid to speak up because they know that people are going to jump down their throats. And even when I create a song like The Good in Us, now my intention to dispel the whole the C word theory.
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to dispel that without using the words because I'm not trying to separate people. I'm trying to bring people together, and we could all agree on. And if I start saying this or that, I lost them. I'm already shadow banned, so who knows how many people are actually seeing my. I try to come up with ways to highlight the things which are similar. That's why the good in us. I don't totally shy away from certain things where, like, for instance, there was a quick scene of somebody in the background. And so I think anybody who's or knows this nonsense is going to realize what I'm referring to. But I'm trying not to alienate and say, like, oh, look at that. You mean back in the 50s there were mixed marriages? And it's just insane. There was the musicians were all mixed back in the 40s. Mixed groups. So I'm trying to, when I write these things, to get across the idea to not alienate, basically, to anybody with a little gray matter left can look at it and go like, yeah, that's kind of triggering. You say the wrong word and boom, they shit you off, and they got your number.
Well, and you kind of came up in that same era as my dad. They grew up just outside Detroit right after the race riots. And, and me growing up near Detroit, you've got Motown. You do have this collaboration of, people of all colors making music. And it was just this joy for them. It was not, it wasn't about the race. It was about the music, and about how people could come together and make this incredible thing that's so much bigger than the people who came together to make it, and I feel like we've refined that down. They did. I said, it's funny because I grew up just outside of Detroit, and there were more Black kids that I went to school with than white kids. And I remember when the segregation people came in and they're like, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to start busing. Well, it was a terrible thing for our neighborhood because all the kids you were friends with that you went to school with that were Black were now being bussed out of this neighborhood to some school 20 minutes away. They couldn't participate in anything after school because back then everybody just had one car, and they were late getting home. By the time they got home, it was almost dinner time. We all had to go in, so we couldn't play together. And as the days got shorter in the winter, that made that even less. And it totally broke our neighborhood. And I'm like, why couldn't you just have let us all go to the school that we all live across the street from, where we could all play and go to summer things together and enjoy the extracurriculars together. But, in the name of, it's so funny. You have all these people who are completely removed from a situation deciding how they're going to make it better. And they never discuss it with the people in the situation. They're like, we're going to come in and this is going to be so much better for you. And it was so much worse for all of us.
Yeah. And mainly run by white people, saying that white people, I mean, when you talk in generalities about a group, and I don't care if it's Jews, Christians, it's, Asians, when you talk in generalities, you've already lost the argument. You're showing clue what you're talking about.
Yep.
This whole thing with kind. I mean, I'm Jewish. I grew up Jewish. Mm-hmm. I don't give a crap about what he said. I don't really know what's in his heart. Is he anti-Semitic? Mm-hmm. And he claims to be Jewish. So,
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And these people, getting back to the white versus Black, to tell a 5-year-old that they're a racist,
right. Yes.
and a Black 5-year-old that
you're a victim
is so insane. Yeah. I mean, that is the most racist thing I've heard ever. When I was growing up in the 50s and 60s, it's just insane. And
we talked about that. We were talking about this the other day. I said, you know what? Even if it were true, why would you say it to a child? I'm like, you have now emotionally enslaved that person because you've told him that this other group of people, even if they're nice to you, they're only being nice to you because they don't want you to know that they're racist. They have this viral disease that's racism. It can't be cured. And there's no way that you'll ever be on equal footing with this person. Even if it were true, why would you say that? I'm like, it brings no good for the child, because if you are a perpetual victim, you can never become a survivor. You can never become an overcomer. I said, I was raped in college. I was a victim that day. When I survived it, I was a survivor. And now I'm a victorious overcomer. And I'm like, I wouldn't want to go around calling myself a rape victim every day. I've overcome that by a lot of years. Why would you put this on a child? You're a victim of racism. No, you may experience racism, because there is racism in the world, and there is. I've seen it, especially as a nurse. You see it a lot in healthcare. But you have all these gifts and talents and all of this beauty in you, and you are going to, I am so excited to watch how you overcome that and succeed anyway. That's what you say to a kid.
Yeah. You telling a kid that you're warping their minds, and I mean, you're creating future mental illness and hate and distrust. That's a crime in my world. I'm sure yours too.
Sure.
It's just so insane. And your body is not who you are.
Right.
I'm sure you probably
yes. You're a soul traveling in this meat suit for a very short time.
Yeah. It's not like your car is you. You're excuse me. Basically, if you think you're a victim, you are a victim.
That's right.
If you think you're not, then you're not. I mean, because you're a spiritual being that's inhabiting a body for a certain amount of time.
That's
and
right.
The best to do is consider, is change its mind, is have thoughts, realities. And it has nothing to do with the color of your whatever, it's just crazy.
It is. It's
crazy world.
It would be like, the whole thing with men and women, now we can't, you've got a Supreme Court justice who now says she's not a biologist, and she can't tell you what a woman is. And I'm like, wow. And this doesn't disqualify you for the job today. This is just astonishing. Look what has developed. We have a grown woman who I assume is a owner of a vagina who cannot tell you if she's a woman or what a woman is. I'm like, I could figure it out with one hand and a flashlight. What are you doing?
And not only that, she's up as the first. So if she doesn't know what a woman is, how could anybody claim that if they don't know what a woman is?
Well, how can you rule over anything if you can't parse out that little bit of truth?
Yeah, I really, that's the thing I really worry about, the Supreme Court, because they're life, so
it's as though we've got a good portion of society that is living in a derived fantasy and expecting us all to participate. And I'm like, look, you can do whatever you want to do. I don't think living in confusion is the way you were designed to live. And I don't think you're going to, become your best self by doing that, because, you're always in this state of, if this very core part of you is fluid all the time, and from day to day, there's not freedom in that. That's actually bondage, because that's always the thing you're thinking about. I keep telling people this. I'm like, look, you can't confuse children. You can't put something on them that is so ethereal and something that adults apparently can't even figure out. Why would you put this on a little kid? They're just trying to get through their day, figure out their world. They don't need that added kind of intangible thing that you've now made them have to dig through. And then that becomes your sole focus. It's complete narcissism. And I'm like, then when you demand everybody else go along for the ride and feed into it, we don't do that with anything. I can't just make something up and then demand everybody else go along with it. And I'm like, you're not a victim when you can come after people and vindictively just shut them down, cause them to lose jobs and family and be demonetized and lose platforms. You're no longer a victim. You now have the power. So you're the oppressor.
Hmm.
And the thing is that's not even an insult anymore. They're like, yes, we are the oppressors. Don't cross us.
One of the things I learned also is when what type of people to not even discuss this with, because you could talk to, won't matter because they won't hear you.
No.
And it'll save you years off your life, years of
yeah.
I mean, just knowing who not to bother discussing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're doing,
Yeah,
when you're looking at all of this, I'm guessing a lot of your music is you're trying to shine a light back on what sanity was like and show that it still exists and elevate it so that people will embrace it again.
Yeah. I'm trying to show things that are more important and more widespread in the local or the current news that's going to be there for a few days or a week.
Yeah.
I can't certainly do that in a music video. You could do that on a podcast. I get bored real.
But you have a podcast.
I have an audio podcast. I did, I think, weekly episodes, and then I got tired of it.
Well, you've got the Uncle Neal's thing, which I like because they're short and they're they're very topical for. I'm pouring tea over here. They're very topical for the day, and I really enjoy those because they're just. I was telling you earlier, I love to listen to my dad talk because my dad doesn't give a flip what anybody thinks anymore because he's 76 years old, and there's just such. As I'm getting to that age, my mom's like, "Don't worry, once you get to 50, you won't give a crap what anybody thinks anymore." And I still at 52, probably just because I have a platform, I have to, dance lightly. But, my dad will just say whatever. And it's so refreshing to hear him say the truth without trying to soften it or, massage it to make it more palatable to, anybody else in the family who might not agree. He's like, "Hey, this is my house. I'll say whatever the hell I want," And it's a nice thing to hear because you don't hear it anymore.
I'm like that with my wife and family.
Yeah, where it's safe, where the people love you.
Yeah. Because they already know I'm sane. I'm not uncle that just, like, some weird guy that just doesn't make any sense.
You're echoing their frustrations too.
Yeah, but I do have to keep a certain. I'm trying not to appeal to 3 people when I'm on the internet. I'm trying to get and that does limit me, but not too much. It just means I have to avoid the trigger words. I have to avoid sometimes. I can, and a lot of times, on my posts on YouTube or I'll say something and some guy comes on to troll and just nasty to begin with. He doesn't come on and say, "Well, I kind of disagree."
Looking to be offended. Yeah,
he comes on. Haven't you ever read? Didn't you ever see this? And that kind of thing. And I probably get more views and things, but I don't come back shouting at them. A lot of people online get a lot of audience that way. Get into an argument, but if the guy keeps doing it, or if he insults any of the people that are on my wall or wherever, or on YouTube, if they start getting insulting or abusive or use too much profanity for no reason, because there is a reason for profanity, then I'll block them.
Right.
But for the most part, I leave them there just long enough so that this guy is.
Well, normally they'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Like there's a video.
I can sit back and sit.
Exactly, right? That's the joy when you have established who you are enough with the people who follow you and you have shown them respect and you've come to love them and they love you. You don't generally need to say a whole lot because I would have
Yeah.
like I do a lot of talks for other people's channels, and there's a channel called Shaman Oaks, and he puts up near-death experiences, and so he put one of my videos up, and it's got like 1.7 million views or something. So every once in a while, I'll go through the comment section, and it's I'm amazed when first of all, intellectually, it really raises your game to not sink to that level. To not because I could very easily. I have a personality where I could very easily be super funny and super cutting, and I could double my viewership overnight. But
Right.
to me, that's beneath me. I won't do it. I'm like, look, it's no good for me to talk about COVID and how not to die from it if only one side comes to the table, because I don't want anybody to die
Yeah.
from it. I don't care what your political views are. You don't deserve to die from COVID for them. And so I'll go through
Right.
and I'll read the comments in that huge long video stream. Every couple of months I'll go through, and there's always somebody who's like, super nasty. You'll get a lot of Christians that are like, "Oh, she definitely didn't see God. That was Satan, and because she didn't personally see Jesus or whatever." And I'm like,
Like,
"Oh,
how
you guys are why
would they
people
know
don't go to
even?
church, right? Stop it. Like,
Yeah.
were you there?" And then you've got
Yeah.
the people that are like, "Oh, she's just making all of this up to make money." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cute." Neal, I'm sure you can
Yeah.
vouch.
I
We
bet you
don't make any money.
got
No.
it.
You do talks on other channels. You don't get paid for that stuff unless you're huge. You just don't. It's a courtesy that we give to each other to
Right.
to
Right.
do interviews and help build each other's
Wait a
platforms.
minute. I'm not getting paid for this?
No, man. He's gone.
I'll pull a Kanye on you.
Wouldn't that be funny? You just like walk out. We got to do it on site.
20 minutes later,
You're like, screw this.
come
That's the
back with
only
a-
hour you're getting. And Neal just walked off her show.
And we'd get some ratings if anybody
Right.
knew who I was.
We could get in a
was
screaming match
Kanye, yeah.
about whatever. I don't know what we'd scream at each other about, but we could fake it. I feel like we could. We
Yeah.
both have a dramatic flair. So you're doing, now that you're in Florida, I'm guessing you're retired.
Working harder now than I've ever worked in my life.
I know, right? Me too. I'm retired and I'm killing myself.
7 days a week. I haven't had a weekend or a vacation off in years.
Are you doing gigs?
I'm not. That's not a complaint. What's that?
Are you doing gigs, or is it all just your online stuff?
Because unless I have somebody going to lug the equipment around for me, I don't. That's something. And
It's a lot.
I won't show up with a guitar. If I'm going to do a live where it's going to be fun for me and be more of a production than just some open mic or something. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I can find myself quoting Seinfeld all the time.
It's a great show. It has
is.
so many good lines in it.
And if you grew up in New York, truthful, that show is, especially the one where they visit their parents' down. It's
Elaine's like, Mrs. Seinfeld,
perfect.
Please turn on the air conditioning.
Yes, my father, when we first got our first air conditioner, which was in their bedroom, and he'd say, "Don't touch those buttons.
Don't turn it on. It's really expensive."
You got it. But everybody knows, if you're from New York and you have parents that live in Miami or both, they know when you come to visit, you're the one that's going to be sleeping on the and you're going to wake up
with the bar in your bag.
Back problems. that was an episode I couldn't. Perfect. And then the guys in the condo association were stealing from them. We're off topic.
No, but it is a good show. There's that, and like there are just certain things that I think are super quotable. Like anything from Monty Python's The Holy Grail is just quotable. I mean, I don't know why, but it is. There's another, The Princess Bride, super quotable movie. That word you keep using, I don't think it means what you think it means. And I find my kids and Steve Martin's The Jerk. I was talking to my future daughter-in-law, and Don was talking to her, my husband, and he said, it's from the Jerk. And I said, she's never seen it. And we were both like, Oh, you poor thing. You're what, 20 something, and you've not seen this? I mean, how are you living every day and you've not seen the jerky?
What shocked me too, I went to a restaurant when we were still going to restaurants
Yes.
before the play.
Mhm.
I had this waitress who was she must have been in a, and I had mentioned Laurel and Hardy. She never heard
Yes.
of Laurel and Hardy, and I upped in my
That's
laugh.
great. When I was working as a nurse still, we had our baby nurses, which were nurses that were just out of nursing school. And I had called, so we have these little computers on wheels that we push around. We call them cows, computers on wheels, right? And so I named mine Tonto. And she's like, "Why do you call your cow Tonto?" And I said, "Well, it's like my sidekick." And she just looked at me, she had no idea what I was talking. I'm like, the Lone Ranger and Tonto. She's like, "No." And I'm like, "Oh, this is perfect." And I said, the Chippendales dancers." She says, "Right." And I said, "The Lone Ranger and Tonto were the original two male Chippendales dancers, the male strippers.
Wait, no,
They
you
started that whole
mean
thing."
you mean that YMCA, those guys,
The Village People. Well,
Village People. He was a Chippendale looking guy.
right. No. So she goes into the break room, and all the women there are about my age, and they're like, she's like, Penny calls her cow, her computer on wheels, Tonto, and she's like, "You guys know why that is, right?" She's going to inform them. She's 20 something, and she's like, "Because of the Lone Ranger and Tonto, they started the Chippendales male dance review." They all just start dying. They're like, "That's not who they are." So she comes back. She's like, "Did you
Hey,
know
I
that
gotta
was a
do one.
Western?" Go ahead.
I got to do one thing. If my wife is listening to this in the other room, condition.
She is watching.
Oh,
She's
can
watching.
tell.
Well, she told me she was your wife, at least. There's somebody claiming to be your wife.
Okay. I am freezing in here, and she's probably colder because her room is colder, and she's above. And
Free to create. He's freezing. Hold on, I'm messaging her in the chat.
This is great.
Neal is freezing.
I could have just yelled out the door.
I'm happy to help.
Is she in the chat? I can't see that very well.
She's on the Rumble chat. So I don't. If you don't have Rumble up, you can't see it. But she's called Free to Create. She said, "This is Neal's wife. You can verify now, because this could just be some woman who's after you. I'll help you put a stop to it if I can." He doesn't know my name on here, she said. He's freezing. He's shivering.
No, it's cool.
Do you
I think
see?
she shouted already.
She's handling it, she says.
I'm glad she's watching.
I love that she's watching. Yeah, she popped on real early and said she was your wife. And I'm like, I hope she's his wife.
I just love 75-year-old guys from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I can't go down. I can't go down being mobbed by a bunch of 65-year-old women.
I know. Wouldn't that be awful? It would be so offensive to your lovely wife. Dang.
Yeah, we've been married 52 years, I think.
Oh, wow.
Feels like
that's awesome.
51.
Feels like 51. What's your secret?
Yeah. She stays in that room. I stay in this room.
She's got a name that I don't know in chat, and I just have other people send her messages.
What is the secret? The secret is mainly communication, decision. A decision to stay together no matter what, and not to just break up, but to work together to solve the problem, because there's always going to be problems. Without problems, life would be pretty dull. But as long as you both agree to work it out together, and I got to tell you, the last 30 years probably have been a breeze. First 20 or 30,
sure,
a lot of ups and downs, but it's like so amazing. I usually don't talk about it because people think I'm nuts. It's, we really have the ESP going and everything. I probably didn't even have to tell you to tell us.
Yes, it's true though. After a while, you do kind of sync up. It's I always tell people, they'll say, what do you, having failed at marriage twice before, I took a long break to figure out what was wrong with me. I'm like, there's something wrong with you that you're picking men who treat you so badly. And I always tell
Mm.
people, don't keep picking. Stop. Figure you out, you know? And I'm like, then I finally, God showed me who I was. He's like, let me show you why I love you, and let me show you who you are, how I see you. And when you
Mhm.
find a man who will love you like I love you, that will last. And that's it. I'm like, when you go into marriage, you don't go in with a plan B of how you're going to get out if it doesn't work.
Right.
And so many
And
people do.
well, it's a thing. I think many people who could pull it off.
Mhm.
Just there are quite a few. It does get to a point where it is so amazing that it's truly spiritual.
Mhm.
As I'm sure you know.
Yes.
But you think you're in love because you have this animal magnetism.
Mhm.
This, your hormones are running, and but you can go to a different person every single night.
Yeah.
That's going to wear out, and you're going to be alone in the end. There's nothing like
That's fun. It doesn't have any
really.
staying power.
No, and it isn't even fun. I mean, after
Yeah.
a while, people they got to get into drugs to have sex.
Yep.
They got to do drugs to be drugs, do drugs because they're bored. And anyway, that when you get all over that, get through it, give that up and start confronting life and confronting the person who's right there in front of you, really looking, seeing them and acknowledging them. I had a realization a few days ago. This might sound like no big, because I'm brilliant. I
Tell us,
really
Neal.
make myself laugh.
I love it.
But for about 10 years at least. And I realized just a few days ago, I hadn't, for my whole life, I wasn't looking at my father. I was looking at a symbol of my father. You get this preconceived idea, especially if you're with somebody a long time, and you have this mocked up symbol and you talk to the symbol and you relate to the symbol, and you don't really look at them and go, my God, this is, what are they really thinking? What's really important to them? Really listen to them in present time, really get what they're saying. I realized that for my entire life, there were very few moments for my mother and my father where I actually really saw them. A lot of people break through that during high emotional things, when somebody's very baby, or something that's very emotional. They can break through that crust of not reading the symbol, the veneer.
Yeah, this image you built up in your mind is
that
who they are.
realization. Yeah, and you walk around with this symbol. This is father. He's a symbol. He does this. He says this. This is going to say that. So I really wish when I was younger I knew more and was able to break through that more.
Yeah.
But of course there were moments. But if you can do that with somebody you're living with day in and day out, I think the key. See them in present time, not as a repeat for the last.
Oh, nice. That's true. It's funny. I was telling Don the other day, we every once in a while, about just before the sun comes up, all the birds like to get in these trees in the backyard, and they're loud. I mean, it's deafening if you go out there, but if you wait a little bit, they'll kind of disperse. And there was a a day, I don't know, a couple years ago, I was out there, and you go out and you hear the birds, right? And you're like, oh, birds are singing. But then I listened a little harder to see if I could hear birds under that layer. And there were different birds singing under that layer. And I listened a little harder, and there were birds under that layer. And it's so funny because I think as we get older, and I can see you have this experience just by watching the videos that you make. I'm watching your videos and I'm like, that's a layer he's put on. He's added that. This little stick figure wasn't enough. He needed to make it more meaningful. So he brought in a, oh, what is that called? Where you darken the image on the outside to bring the focus.
Vignette.
Yeah. So you're kind of narrowing this focus, to darkening the outside to bring the focus in on this character, and you have this feel for this isn't attached enough yet. I need to bring this in, and I'm like, man, that's life. I so as I'm kind of taking apart your videos in my mind from what little bit I know of editing, I'm like, that's so true of everything. It's true of every person you meet. There's this top layer that everybody shows you when you first see them, and then there's this investment of time and love and allowing that person to be who they are that gets you to that next layer and the next layer until you really figure out what they're made of. And you're right. So many of us just operate on that top layer. You know how the person's going to react when you say whatever the thing is, and you never get any deeper for whatever reason, not necessarily because you don't want that, but sometimes it's resistance on their part, and sometimes it's where you are or the time that you're willing to put in or that you have to put in. But it's interesting because I noticed that when I thought of that, the birds the other day, I thought, man, that's every relationship. You can go below that top layer where you're annoyed with somebody, or and you remind yourself, like, Don will do something annoying and I'm like, you're not the most easy person to be around either, and then you can go down a little bit deeper with that, and you're like, oh, he's just this innocent guy trying to get through his day. He's not trying, that thing isn't meant to annoy you. But people will live on that top surface, and nothing works when you live on that top surface. We've got one of our viewers here is Paul K. His wife has cancer, and he's been taking care of her. And she's really, really sick. And they had been traveling around in their RV to different places in the country to kind of support this patriot movement. And I just thought, wow, what a level of relationship they have to have taken that journey together. And now for her to be sick and him to be, the caregiver. And he, he was just talking about what she meant to him or what she means to him in his life. And I thought, what a testimony to their relationship. Paul says, LOL at Penny and Neal. Tonight's not too bad. Changing her meds again. God is good. Thankful for my wife, even she being so sick, and it's my pleasure to help her. Paul, I just love your spirit so much. It is, wow. It just teaches us a lot about, it's hard, and it is a lot of time, and it's painful to watch someone else suffer, and he still is finding joy in that. And I just think it's the higher lesson. And I see that in your videos so much. The Shanghai video.
Well, thanks.
You killed me with that one.
That's why I'm wearing this shirt, because this is from my research. This means Shanghai.
Oh wow! And, I was watching today. That whole, there's a little take. MJ Truth on Rumble has little short videos, and she's got the video of that building burning and the people crying for help. And it's so funny because people say, well, isn't it easier for you because there's not really death and that we go on? And I'm like, no, it's not any easier, because that is unjust. And these people, I cannot imagine, and I'm claustrophobic, so it totally freaks me out, being locked in, not being able to go out, and burning alive with your 3-year-old. And our government says nothing.
That's what spurred all these protests.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that the Chinese communists aren't going to really. I saw just a few hours ago tanks coming into the cities.
Yeah. There's nothing they won't do. They're just depraved. They're bad actors, and I'm just, I wonder what it would take to get people here that impassioned in the streets for someone else that isn't in their direct circle. These people over there are truly suffering. And I'm like, why are we not in the streets in mass demanding that our government say something or put sanctions in place for the human rights violations? That, I mean, people are burning alive in their apartments because they've welded them into the buildings. And our government's, what was it? I can't think of the guy. He's so smug. He said, they asked him, what does the president have to say about the protests in China? And he's like, well, the protesters are speaking for themselves. And I'm like, you're soulless.
Jeez.
And that's it. I'm like, we really are being governed by soulless monsters. I don't
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, how can you not have any statement of outrage over that? And I guess if the media doesn't report it, you don't have to.
Yeah, and I agree with you totally. I think they're run by sociopaths and pedophiles,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when people don't confront something like a subject, or it continues. Not confronting the fact that we're being run by these, I mean, human trafficking are probably the hardest subjects there are to confront.
Sure.
And that's the reason, is because if people would actually, you know, get them breath and see what's going on. They got to go out for some fresh air every now and then, because it's very hard to take. But if people actually saw what is really there, it would start to dissolve. The only
I think so.
reason they get away with it is because it's too hard to confront.
Well, and I think we've got,
People
this media that is colluding in the whole thing, where, I mean, that is an obvious news story. And it used to be, if something was an obvious news story, it made the news. I mean, it may not stay in long, but people burning to death because their apartment building doors are wired shut, and the main building doors are welded shut, and the building catches fire, and they're screaming. I mean, that's news. That's, if it bleeds, it leads. That is the standard for what it takes to get on the news. And it doesn't get on the news
Right.
because, we don't want anybody outraged over that. We don't want anybody developing opinions about these. I mean, that is something that causes outrage no matter what your beliefs are, who you are. And so we're just not going to talk about it.
And there's other reasons this particular thing in China is being hidden, because there's so much money for certain people. I don't know, somebody had something to do with a laptop, and his father, I don't want to mention any names.
Exactly. Well, it's hard when when every country that is got bad actors in charge has some dirt on you.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm like, where do people think this is good? And then you've got people that are like, oh, well, that's not real. That's not true. That's Russian propaganda. And I'm like, have you seen the videos? Because that's like the best fake Hunter Biden I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it is clearly him. There's so much. What did it take CBS 2 years or something like that
2
to
years,
validate the computer? They're like, we just got back with our computer guy, and after 2 years of research, he's able to verify these things are Hunter Biden's. I'm like, no crap, really? We knew this.
A montage of I don't know if it was one of these, if it was one of those guys. They put together a montage of CBS from 2 years ago and MSN, just one after another, talking about how it's a conspiracy theory. There is and they got all these intelligence people high,
right,
claiming it's Russian disinformation.
Yeah, 30 of them.
Now all of a sudden, 2 years later, after the person has been elected, all of a sudden, well, it seems to be there. It might be a story here. I don't know what it is exactly.
Well, and they've known this. They knew this when he was vice president, because there was this, whispering going on that he was compromised, and this was going to look very bad for Obama. And, maybe they needed to rein Joe in. And I guess they didn't I mean, he doesn't strike me as super diabolical intelligent. Like, at least not
Obama
now, but I mean,
Biden?
even ever. Biden, he doesn't strike me as somebody who could hide this very well, because he just doesn't seem like he's wicked smart. I mean, he might be wicked, but it takes a lot. Like, I guess because I can't lie, because I have a horrible memory. I used to lie as a kid, I remember, and after having all those episodes of respiratory failure, being on the ventilator 18 times in induced comas, I do well to remember my own medical history. And so I'm just not going to lie, because I can't remember crap. I would never, like, I'm always dumbfounded when I find out somebody's having an affair. I would be sick. I would be so scared I was going to get caught. There's no way I could enjoy it.
Right.
It just, the whole sneaking around would make me so physically, I think you're either wired that way or you're not. And I'm just not. I never could, and here my ex cheated on me. And I was like, how can you Like, how do you kiss your children with that mouth? I mean, what are you doing? This is sacred what we have here. Family is sacred, and
Yeah.
I've always believed that. And I'm astonished when, his daughter publishes, or his daughter's journal comes out, and she says she was showering with her dad at 11 years old, and there's no one answers for that. No one says, "Oh, that's not true," or she got the she thought she was 11. She was much younger. I was handing, because I remember when my kids were little, um, and my husband, like, I was still nursing one, the others were toddlers, preschool, and I can remember him handing them into the shower, and I'd wash them all off, hand them out, he'd dry them. Um, and I know most parents have bathed their kids that way. That's a whole lot different than bathing with your preteen,
That's
you
that's
know?
that's really weird. He's
And what no
he's
answer.
I think you're right. He's not, uh, and he's also a criminal, and he's now that he's got dementia.
Yeah.
It's I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that the major news networks, and they got the big tech censoring anybody who has a different opinion, the entire country would know what's going on, not
Yeah.
just the people who want to know. It's
Right. I don't know
it's
how you
weird.
can even hide it at this point when you've got I'm like, "Okay, so for everybody who's like, 'No, no, this is still our guy,' like, CBS just validated that laptop, so all those things that you saw that you thought were fake are true. Where are you with that?" Like, I'm like, "Do you just" It's interesting to me because I feel like up until the last maybe 10 years or so, we lived in a society where even if you and I disagreed, I could say certain hold on a second. I could what the heck? Stop. I could say something to you and you'd say, "Oh, well, I don't agree with that," or "That's not the way I see it." And then I would show you evidence and I would say, "Okay, well, look, let's say COVID-19. Um, if you look, there's a study in the Lancet where they talk about they can see where this is a synthetically created virus." And I would give you this study and you would read it and you'd be like, "Huh, well that's interesting. Why hadn't I heard about that? I hadn't read anything about that." And then I would say to you, "Does it seem curious to you that um, we didn't lock down for H1N1 or Ebola or anything like that, but we locked down for this, and has it occurred to you maybe they did that because they knew this was synthetic and it started going like wildfire and they're like, 'Oh crap. How is this thing gonna go down? We've never dealt with anything like that we made ourselves. We better lock everybody.'" Then it all starts kinda making sense, and you could compel somebody to look at the information. Now what we've got is groups on either side that are like, "I don't care what you show me." This person could eat a baby with 2 forks in the public square,
Yeah,
and I would still think he's a good person.
right.
I mean, it's that level. I'm not even overstating it.
I think I really, yeah, no, you're totally right. I see that too. It's like you did put in my video to sing with me on certain things, like and they're musicians, they're singers, they're people who are professionals, and and they told me they can't do it because they'd lose all their students. Oh, you people are afraid. The people who know what's going on, intimidated, and I'm not blaming them for that.
Sure.
I understand that
You gotta
totally.
live.
They have got to live. That shows you the power of this censorship, and there is no other way. They are fomenting this insanity that anybody questioning the narrative is a conspiracy theorist, which was a CIA back in the days when Kennedy was shot, because they wanted
Yes.
to disprove that any theory. No, it was a lone gunman. So they started calling people conspiracy theorists, and the CIA, the news, they have what was it, the church meetings, and the CIA was basically saying they have people working with the news organizations. They're not supposed
Yep.
to be using propaganda against American
Against
people.
us, right. This was supposed to be a
Yeah,
war Operation Mockingbird wasn't supposed to be for us.
yeah, but they there's a jargon of people that do fall for that stuff. They glaze over, and it's
Mm-hmm.
it's just, you say it often enough by somebody who seems to have some sort of altitude. He's an opinion leader,
Yeah,
like
thought leaders. Yeah.
and they buy it. They buy it. I've had family members, even on certain topics, they wouldn't believe me even when I had the personal experience, and they would have to television. So that must be right. Or I saw this person has a book out. That must be my own son.
Yeah.
You know,
You know what's funny though is I think we're living in this time where if you're really entrenched in one idea, like for me, you could tell me something bad about somebody politically who I support, and I would be able to look at that and I would say, you know what? You're right. That's a real problem for me. And I don't think I can support that person now that I know this. So I still, even though I have strong beliefs, I still could be swayed by prudent information. I'm not, so um, embedded in that thinking that I assume that that person can do no wrong, or, you just kind of are weighing it out because everybody's human and somebody's got to lead the country, right? But
right.
what I'm seeing is there's this other side of it, and it's on both sides of people that no matter what happened, they can't entertain it. They can't let their brain go there. It's almost like it would break them. Even though you can show them everything and show them that what you're saying is true,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way they could let that into their brain because this belief system is so fragile that if you broke, it's scary to them because they need to believe the things that they've always believed. And now you're going to upend all of their thought processes, all of their belief systems. And then where are you? And that is a really scary place to be. It's almost like your marriage ending. You find out your husband's cheating and your marriage ends, and you're like, holy crap, I thought we were a family and we had all these things. And now I find out it's all lies. And it's destructive. It's a huge betrayal to you. And people will go along forever and be like, no, he's not cheating. I did that. He's not cheating. Oh, you're just a suspicious person by nature. And you quiet those things because you don't think you can emotionally bear for that reality to bubble up to the top. And I think there's going to have to be a significant amount of pain before they're willing. Yeah, I know. Before they're willing to go there emotionally.
Stability, and they're more willing to believe a lie and be stable on it than to and take another look.
Yeah.
And for me, all my life, I think this way, but to me, the most important thing ever was the truth. Even if it was hard for me
Yes.
to have to rethink everything. That's why I wrote the song Truth Matters. If you saw that one with the video on that's part of the Unhinged album.
Oh, yeah.
It's the end, you see the sign, and it's all buried in leaves, and like nobody cared about their own signs. But if you really believe that truth matters, then you have to keep searching. You can't just fall into this stability and lie because it feels good. And it does take courage. It does to find the truth, and you might only find little bits and pieces along the way.
Yeah.
But if you will find that stability eventually, and you still have to be willing to listen to other things, it accordingly with what you know to be true, and then you'll find it on.
Yeah, I think I think we're getting to a point where, more and more people are starting to question just the official narrative. They're like, well, now wait a minute. I remember you saying defund the police. I'm pretty sure I remember that, or because now they're just they're totally gaslighting us. Well, you're crazy. We never said defund the police.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, wait, hold on. There's the internet, and it's forever. And I can find that you said that thing. And no, it was you who wanted to defund the police. I'm like, no, I would have never said anything like that. And now you can at least, it's happening. Like before, it happened over so much time. It was harder to put together. And now it's the news cycle. Like, 2 months ago, it was, before we were closer to the elections, it was defund the police. And then we got to the elections and it was like, no, that was your idea. And I'm like, I can
Right.
remember 2 months ago. I'm not an idiot, and I that's so offensive to me. I'm like, I'm not stupid, right? I remember the thing, and then they're like, oh, well, you were misunderstanding what we said. We were meaning reallocate some funds. And I'm like, no, I was listening because I remember at the time thinking, wow, that's a bad idea. Let's go to high
Where's the
crime
tape?
areas and make there be less cops. Yeah, bring up the Dan Rather. Bring up the Dan Rather. I trolled Dan Rather the other day.
Oh,
He said
yeah.
something. Never trolled anybody before, but I'm kind of at my limit. I hit 52 and now I'm like, screw all of you. That's a lie. But Dan Rather was going after Elon Musk about something. And I'm not a Elon Musk. I'm not in love with this guy. I don't think he has all the answers to anything. Nobody does. But, I think he's trying. And I think everybody's super critical of someone who's only been at the job for 3 weeks. And so Dan Rather was
Yeah.
like, he loved the Tesla or something like that. I can't remember. And then he just kind of got snarky right away. And I was like, wow, Dan, coming from a guy who pulled a totally diva move and got up off the set and walked off the set when he found out he was going to be preempted by the US Open. And there was something else
remember that, but I should.
Yeah, it was a very diva thing. And I was like, oh, wow, Mr. Important, I'm sorry. Are you still relevant? And I'm like, everybody has, I was watching Tim Pool the other day, and Tim Pool's got an opinion about everything. And he's one of the alternative news people. I don't know if you follow him or not, but
Yeah,
every day
I follow him a lot.
Yeah, every day he's got, well, if I were Elon, I would. And I'm like, I just think that's funny when people say it because you're not. And
Yeah.
Elon's like building rockets to the moon, and I think maybe he might just be a little bit on a different plane. And but every day he's got advice for how, and he's very critical of him. He's like, well, he's not going to let him do this. I'm like, okay, it's been a minute. Maybe give him, a few days and let him decide how he's going to bring people back onto the platform. But people are just so critical in that moment. And I'm like, I don't know, how about we give him 6 months and see how he does before we start second guessing every move he makes.
Well, they have the same problem now of filling up a lot of airtime. It's the same thing that news to 24 hours.
This is true.
And, it gives us an alternative, but it's still.
It still is what it is. It's populated with people. My husband has a question. He's typed out and brought to me. So if you can see this, he says, as I'm getting older, 62, I'm finding songwriting seems to be much more about purposeful writing than it is pure inspiration. During my younger days, I didn't consider myself a songwriter because I couldn't write a song in 10 minutes. There was an old story from a rock and roller who wrote his #1 hit in 10 minutes and on a napkin in a restaurant. Do you pick a mode or pattern in a key and just work from there? Many times I love to start with a drum beat, then add parts in my sequencer since I'm not a gifted keyboard player. Do you know any modes used in the Nashville numbering system that can still yield some great songs? I plan on filling in much of my musical gaps over the next 2 years once my home studio is finished. Thanks, Don Whitbrote.
Oh. Okay, well, I refuse to answer that question on the grounds. It's it is a good question. Writing songs since I think I wrote my first song when I was 14 or 10, actually 10. I've been just writing and writing and writing, and I'm always trying to get out of my routines. So I keep looking for different ways to break the habit. Looking for different ways to come at it, and perfect time to plug my new course in music.
There you go. I saw that. Don's like, he's got a course.
It took me 8 months to do it, and
I'm going to bring that up on a screen share. Go ahead. I'm going to bring it up so they can see it.
It's the first thing that I never did a course before. I never created production, starting from beginners. But, I've been producing in the studio of one kind or another for years. But as far as getting back to the question, is your husband's name Don? Is it?
Uh-huh.
Somebody?
Yeah, you guys are friends on Facebook, I think.
Yeah. No, I'm glad, I'm glad it's Don because, I know that all that stuff you talked about, not cheating, you couldn't do it.
No, he's a good guy. I finally got it right with that one.
No, I'm terrible with names, and I wanted to make sure I had the right guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, oh, what happened?
I just brought the
Oh,
course
yeah,
up so people could see it.
Oh, they were
Go ahead.
whatever. But at any rate, I was actually, just within the last few weeks, I was giving some tips on writing songs and how I do it. And because I'm trying all the time to break out of a mold,
Yeah.
I just come at it so many different ways. Sometimes a song title, and I'm always writing down titles. If I come up with something that's really down, or something that sounds provocative, where I don't even have a story or any, just keep a list of titles.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing to at least get me started. Times, and the way I used to do it when I first started out is because I am trained. I mean, I got a degree from New York College of Music and NYU. So I would sit down at the piano and just start doodling and the progression and a melody that I liked with no words and no idea what and then start fitting the lyrics, coming up with on this melody, that sentence seems to suggest a way to go with a subject. From ways to fit in more words and more sentences that would work on that subject, fill itself up. And then I'd have the first verse, and I'd start working on the second verse and realize second verse should really be. And the most important thing is, in terms of lyrics, first, was to set a goal. Once trying to say in the lyric, make sure that you are saying that no matter what you're saying, you are pointing the people in the direction of what you want them to get out of this, think about and come away with. So, and I rewrite. I've written songs in 10 minutes. Like this one song, one of my albums, serious songs called "She Got Too Big for Her Body."
She got too big for her body.
I just came up with this silly idea. Plug, that's on my album. CD will be autographed if you want it. Anyway, the idea first, that this woman or this girl was spending her entire life starving herself so she would look good for the jocks, so she would attract the guys. And now she's eating everything she could find. But she's too big to get back into her bodies. Or totally silly,
Yeah.
But anyway, I was getting off the topic. As lyrics go, I write and rewrite. I do use rhyming dictionaries because some, I even wrote a couple of musicals, and in the old days, which is like girl and world, that's a near rhyme.
Yeah.
If you did something like that, they have perfect rhymes only, but now it's different because hip hop is taken over.
Yeah, now everything doesn't have to rhyme, and
which is okay. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
But it's not my style. I try to
Right.
try to write perfect rhymes as much as I can. More of a challenge in that. So I would use a rhyming dictionary, and I would have the mind, and I'd say, okay, here I have a sentence that ends with earth. And I'd look up in the rhyming dictionary, and you can find these online now too. Just look up rhyming dictionaries. A list of words that rhyme, and then you see secondary words that are close rhymes. And that to me seemed to spur on some more imagination towards the goal I want for the song, for the lyric. So I'd write down words that would rhyme, that would pull me closer to what intention I'm trying to get across as far as lyrics go. And then I would check them over and over again. I'd get a whole set of lyrics, days just reading it and thinking, does that really do what I'm intending? Could I make it better? Rewriting.
We're kind of refining all the time.
All the time. And from what Simon does it, all the really classic rock who come up with these classic songs, they work them hard, but that doesn't mean you can't. Great, that just came to you like that,
Right.
But as far as the music goes, I can play piano, and as a secondary instrument, I play guitar. I sometimes will start writing on the guitar. Forces me to be simpler because I'm not as good a guitarist as I am a pianist. So a lot of
he's the opposite.
And I write on the piano and I come up with these kind of intricate chord progressions. But if I intentionally don't want to do that, I'd start on the guitar. Now that you can have a DAW, a digital audio workstation, which is
he's got
for those
that.
folks who don't know, it's a recording studio in your computer or your laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have the luxury, 30 years, of getting a drum beat going and strumming some guitar chords. I'll sometimes put a beat down first because it just gets you going. And a lot of times, bookmark things that you like. If you hear a song that inspires you, bookmark it so that when you're coming up dry someday and you just, what did I write about today? Just look to the songs that say, okay, it could be a beat, a drum beat that inspires you. It could be a chord progression. It's like that.
Yeah.
You keep it original enough. You're never going to do it exactly the same thing if you could do it.
Sure.
But you just get inspiration. Even Bach from earlier writers. So you shouldn't be afraid to do that. That's another thing. Simon and Paul McCartney, they both did the same thing. And they got inspiration from various things. So did that answer the whole question?
Yeah, I think that's true, for writing too, where I write. I do. I'm one of those people that has to edit as I go. I can't leave a sentence poorly written. And that's what takes me so long is, people are like, well, just get it all down. And I'm like, I tried that. That's torture. I can't do it. I have to go back, and I find if you fight yourself, if that's who you are as a person, you kind of go with it because you'll waste more time fighting it than you would otherwise.
Right.
And so I'll start writing and it sounds like it's a lot the same as writing a chapter of a book. You state what your title is of that chapter, and then everything you write needs to be building on that and leading that person back to that title and resolving whatever that was. And so it sounds like it really, I'll do like just little inspirational essays and stuff for just my viewers. And there was the message that God gave me that's really popular that I usually read at the end of, if I do a interview on my near-death experience. There was, when I woke up from the coma that first time after being with God, he appeared in the room and he's like, hey, I want you to give this message to people. And so I didn't have anything to write with or anything. And he scared me because he popped into the room, and God doesn't just normally do that.
Do it.
So right. So I screamed and he laughed, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought you were gone. He's like, I'm God, I'm never gone. And I laughed, and he laughed because it was funny. And he's like, hey, I want you to give this message to people. And I didn't have any way to write it down. And he just spoke it to me. And I didn't have paper till the next day. And I wrote it down. I mean, it was like he was saying it to me again. And so I didn't share it for a really long time. And, God was kind of dealing with me on that. And he's like, hey, I didn't give that to you to keep. And it kind of hurt my feelings. And I remember kind of thinking to God, no one had ever written me a love letter before. And I just wanted to have it just between us. And,
Nice.
and he's like, he said, I get that, but if you keep it for just yourself, it's theft. And I'm like, well, crap, I'm not a thief, so all right. So I decided I'll send it to you, but I decided I finally, it took me a couple of years, but finally I decided I had to share it. And I thought, when you get something like that, and it's funny because I can remember, I got stalled on writing the book because COVID hit, and I was just I was struggling because I go through the comments where people were leaving comments on videos that I had done, and it was always the church folk that were super critical. And I'm like, you know what? Screw all of you. You think you're a biblical scholar apparently, and you can interpret my experience and tell me how this is an ungodly thing, and there's nothing in it that's inappropriate. Um, and if that's how it's going to be, then I'm not going to write for you. I won't share my heart with you in my life. And I got real bitter about it. And God's like, I can understand that. I can understand how you could feel bitter about somebody beating up on this story that you've told. It happened with the son that I made. He was treated pretty badly, but still I find a way to love you guys. And so I need you to do that. And I'm like, oh, you're killing me. Can you there's people who write books all the time. I can give you some names, just stop, but it won't go away. So I have to finish it. Right. But I kind of got stopped on the writing, and the other day I thought, okay, I'm going to start again. You got 13 chapters done. You just well finish it. And I've written it for other books, and I've ghost written for some other books and stuff. So I have some experience with writing, but it is, and I bet it's this way for you too, especially where you do the video creation. And your next course needs to be the video thing. Cause if someone doesn't teach me that, I'm going to spend 90% of my time doing it wrong. But, it's just, you want it to be this really meaningful thing. And, when I'm writing, I'm like, this is something that's going to speak into people's lives. And I have found that if I can get out of my own head and just be like, okay, what do you need me to say? And I can write and write and write and look up and not even remember what I've written and be 8 pages in. And it's so weird because I'll go back and read it and not remember what I had written. It's like I'm reading it for the first time. And I'm like, I love it when writing flows like that. And I bet you get that to some extent with music.
Songs are shorter than books, but I have had that experience where, and I have no idea what I wrote, and I got to reread it to see what did I mean.
That's not me, man. That's good. Like, man, I wish I could write like that.
The book you're writing longer pieces, with a song. That an entire song. Oh, maybe it did actually. Yeah, a few times, but you can't. That's, call it from God, call it inspiration, call it whatever you want to call it. It's just, having come through the jingle business, I realize you for inspiration or for God to speak to you. You have to force it as well. So you get it, like I get a call in the morning, had to have something written that day.
Oh,
you cannot wait. Can't wait for lightning to strike. So
like, how do I feel about Dove body wash? I just couldn't do it. I'd be snarky.
Yeah,
I'd come up with hateful stuff.
That's why I quit two years ago. And no, actually, that was one of the reasons. The rope, the camel's back, and I put camels in quotes, was he wanted myself and my two partners to write a song. They couldn't do this country at that point. This is 25 years ago. They stopped allowing cigarette commercials on air in Europe and in other countries. So this big ad agency from New York wanted us to write a hit song, a cigarette company, to get kids, to attract kids in other countries. And that's what broke the camel's back.
Yeah. Great fun. But really, like, they said those words out loud to you?
Yeah.
They're like, hi, soulless person with no ethics.
It was my partner actually who did the talking to the client. There's no reason to write a hit song to get on the charts about smoking, about this particular look like a camel. Joe Camel, remember him?
Yes, I do.
And that's when I refused. My other two partners said they did it, but I refused to do it. And that I was kind of done with the advertising world.
Yeah, you're kind of feeling
that was it.
Whorish at that point. You're like, what won't I do for money?
Yeah, it was enough to have to write things for oil company. And
Right. But at least you're
at
like,
that
okay,
point,
that's a product we actually need to use. I always tell people like, look, if you want to know if you're going the right or wrong direction in life, if you're trying to make a decision and you're having to talk yourself into it, it's wrong. Like you don't have to talk yourself into doing the right thing.
yeah,
But sometimes, there is that other side of it. You need to pay the bills. This is a product we use. Um, our whole society revolves around that sort of thing. And so
mhm.
I can see where it would put you in positions where you're like, I don't know how I could speak to Massengill disposable douches, but I'm sure there's a jingle there somewhere.
Well, I wrote a show called Jingle This. I wrote a couple of Broadway shows. They weren't hits, but in Orlando, right before 9/11 happened. And that was called Meat Street. That was exposing the mental health profession.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's called Meat Street.
Is there a place
And
to
then
see
I
that?
wrote, you can't see it, but I sell the soundtrack online. So
Oh, cool. Is it just your
it's
webpage?
yeah, go to therealnealfox.com
I'm gonna
and
post that.
it's cool. It's
Real
you can
Neal.
it's a double CD, and you can get it as an MP3, or you can get the as
Yeah.
2 CDs. And it was the mental health industry, what they were doing, and the drugs and all that,
Oh, yeah.
which was difficult because of time. So it wasn't a huge huge favorite.
Sure.
So, but anyway,
You're pissing off the right people, though. Kudos.
Yeah. Thanks. Commercial, and it only had 5 people in the cast. It was called Jingle This, which was based on. So I had put some of the things that you just mentioned about like how a song about a douche or a deodorant or whatever. Anyway, that never got put, but one day hopefully, because that's actually a easier sell to the regular. It's
Well, and it's
more
nice
funny
to
and all
have that, kind of poking fun at ourselves, I think, in the industry. And because I was telling people the other day, I was looking for hair extensions, right? And I'm on Amazon, and you get sucked into this shopping experience, and then you realize something else is happening, right? So I'm going through and I'm looking at hair extensions, and I'm like, oh, that's a nice one. And then suddenly it occurred to me, I'm like, am I like in a porn site, or am I looking for hair extensions? Because I'm like, I don't understand why your boobs need to be out for me to like think that that is a good hair product, right? And so
That's
then I
funny.
noticed like it was getting more and more revealed. I'm like, oh my goodness, honey, you've almost got everything. I mean, there's just the dark parts not showing, and then there's like a girl and she's got a t-shirt on, and you can see even the parts you can't show through that. And I'm like, oh my, and so I'm finding myself
This
as
is
a mom
just to sell
just to sell hair extensions on Amazon. Like, you're just go through Amazon and go through hair extensions, and you'll see just about every half naked girl.
Jeez.
You're like, if that girl moves her leg a little bit, I'm gonna know whether she got drawers on or not.
You
So
wanna
I'm
wait
like going,
a second?
sure, you going?
I'm just
I pulled up the pictures
telling
for
the
everybody the other day. I was like, why is this much nudity necessary? And as a mom, I can't like turn that off. I was kind of the mom to all of my kids' friends, right? And it doesn't go away. And so I'm like, man, I wish there was a way that I could message these young ladies on Amazon and be like, honey, you know what? You're a beautiful girl, and you don't have to have your girls all the way out. You could just wear just a nice blouse and the hair would look just as good. Do you get more money because the girls are out? I don't like, is there tape involved? How are you keeping them in that? And I'm like curious. I want to know. I wonder about these things.
starve for attention.
Right? And I tell Don, I'm like, I just don't understand women. I'm like, we complain about being objectified. And I'm like, you can't complain about being like objectified and then go on stage half naked. I mean, am I the only one that sees that that's like a weird dichotomy that doesn't make any sense? And I'll see it all the time. And I'm like, wow, she's talented. You don't have to show that much of your body. And I
Yeah.
know it's the producers, and they push a lot of
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
It just seems like
yeah.
like something. It seems like an industry set up to destroy young people.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially now. When I was doing my things with the record companies, asked me to show my boobs, which was a good thing. It was a good
Don't do it.
thing. But yes, I didn't.
I don't care how
You
nice
know,
they are. You've got to keep them in.
there was some of that. There was some of that, especially if you were. But you know, and the guys, of course, you know, it was always. So now it's gone so far over. You look at people like Cardi B and
Yeah.
oh, I forget the names, but yeah, it's just and everybody says, well, back in the day, you know, they thought Elvis was too sexy, and this is way over the top.
No, I mean, there is, like, I don't know how much further you can go short of us just allowing. I mean, when I watch award shows, there was I can't think of who the fella is that did I think it was an award show where it was basically him being Satan and the guy that had
Yes,
like blood put in his Nike shoes I'm like,
yeah,
what are you?
yeah. I forget his name. It's a single name.
Yeah. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
Children are
Ill
watching
satanic.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. They don't care.
And
They
I'm like, that's not just
just want.
edgy. That's dangerous. That's,
Yeah,
you're playing with something that is I tell people all the time, as much as you want to be mad at your neighbor or be mad at this person, that's not who you're fighting. It is powers and principalities. It is something much higher than this. And they want to make you believe that you're fighting each other. You're not fighting each other. We are all Americans. I don't care what walk of life you come from. And what we're really battling are the powers and principalities that are trying to drag this country into a hole that we're never going to dig our way out of. And we've got to realize that at some point and saying, look, I don't care what you believe. I'm not willing to fight you over it. We all need to try to steer the boat the same direction. And, we all
right.
want to be able to have children, be left alone, be able to raise our kids as we see fit without undue influence. All of these things are important to us. Greetings, Tony. And I'm like, if there are people that can't get on board with that, then they lack the basic, social abilities to be able to engage in this social construct we call America. So, I guess you'll just have to stand on the side because you're insane. There are just insane people, but I think
Yeah,
90% of us can see it. I hope.
yeah, I think so too. And there's one good thing that's come out of this um, eruption of, and in my mind, the insanity was always there. It's just now it's come out.
Yeah.
But come out about this is it's exposing the insanity and it's waking people. Like I'm sure you know, all of a sudden parents were becoming aware of what their kids were being taught. That were shocked. I think the majority of parents don't want their kids being taught the way they're being taught.
No.
It is it's fortunate that this is coming to this. I think there's way more people that understand how crazy it is. They and they're not getting the headlines.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're in an interesting time. We were talking about this Thanksgiving. We did a show and somebody had asked, how do you deal with, when you're struggling with your faith or with belief, how do you deal with that? And I said, I find that when that happens, it's generally during some sort of crisis. You're seeing what's going on with the world and it's so disheartening and nothing that we're doing seems to be moving it the other direction. And I'm like, I always try to remember that this isn't real. This feels like it's real because you're here. But when I got on the other side, I was like, oh, that's right. This is real. This is where I'm from. This is just something that I'm going through to build my spiritual character, because I wanted to have an experience. So now I'm here and I'm like, what you need to remind yourself of when all of this just looks so crazy. First of all, don't believe what the media is telling you that you're the only one and something's wrong with you, because that's exactly what they need you to believe. They want you to not talk. This is how people with borderline personality disorder behave. It's called splitting behavior. So they'll tell you that, when you aren't here at work, Penny talks trash about you. And they'll tell you the same thing about me. And then we won't talk to each other and we'll never compare notes and realize that we actually like each other. Neither one of us is talking about either one. But this is how you divide a country. And I'm like, it comes from the annals of psychiatric disorders, is how we're now being managed as a people.
You nailed it. It's saying low battery. It can't be. I got it hooked up. It's impossible.
Make sure your plug is secure.
Yeah, I haven't touched anything. But I don't know what that's going to do.
If he goes, we'll know why. Your power strip on?
Yeah.
Well, that's
I couldn't have gone this far if it wasn't. Can you still hear me though?
I can.
So let's just go till it says.
We'll just go until it's gone, and then I'll close us out.
Yeah, and I can do anyway, because it is plugged in the right way. So, staring at me saying low battery. There we go. All right, I don't know what's going to happen because I've actually this long on anything, even my wife.
Well, good job.
She's not even hooked up to the internet. It's the face I never talked to her this long.
Poor wife. Well, you know how she feels about all of this. It's we're about done. It's 8:45.
You know how she feels because I'm not seeing her on the chat. I'll have to talk to her after this.
Yeah, she'll give you her input. But that is you're right. We are being managed in a mental health model that makes no sense and that is pushing us apart. And I just keep telling people, just remember that God turns all things for good for those who love him. And if you love God, just start asking, okay, how are you going to turn this for good? I want to see this. I want to see it in my lifetime. How are you going to turn this around? And if you start having that mindset, you'll start seeing it. You'll start seeing the parents at school board meetings. These things will come into your life, right? You'll find alternative media like I did, and you'll see a channel that's broadcasting a school board meeting where parents are like, no more, you're not doing it anymore. And they've thrown all these people out and taken over these school boards because they're like, no, you're not going to put pornography in my fifth grader's library. You people are lunatics. And so if you get on the right, I think a lot of people who are discouraged are on mainstream media. I'm like, if you get off of that and you start watching some stuff on Rumble, you'll be like, oh, wait a minute, we are moving the dial. We are crawling back to sanity. It's going to take a lot of work, but people are doing it. People are standing up. And I always tell people, if you don't know what to do, support the people who do. So if somebody's making music you like, buy their music. Then you're part of their effort. Yeah, every person you reach, if someone buys your music, then they're part of that effort. And every person that I reach, if you join in on that, anybody that is bringing you content that you feel is moving the world in the right direction, you can be part of that movement, which is a really cool thing if you think about it. Like every time some great thing happens, you're in it.
And it's so much better than sitting back and feeling nothing's going to work. And I mean, that's the way they win. If we, there is no you give up.
Right.
That's the only way you can lose.
Don't do it. I'm like, don't give them the satisfaction of quitting. The only way we lose is by quitting.
Exactly. That's that.
And I'm like, double barrel, family friendly middle fingers, no, we will not give up. You will not take this without a fight.
Exactly. It's not a short fight. There's a lot of little battles, and we're starting to see with those soccer moms, who are going to these school, and I just love watching those things where they try reading the book that the council put in the kids' library for fifth graders or kindergarten school. Because they can't have that kind of language reading right out of the book
at the school board
they
meeting.
Approved.
They're like, you can't read that here. Wait a minute, my fifth grader can read it, but I can't read it to adults at a school board meeting. And they were like, there's children here. And I'm like, wait, there's children at the school, right? I mean, maybe I've missed this altogether, but you've gone too far when you've pissed off the mama bears.
Yeah. And that's I think that's going to be a groundswell, that and with all the patriots.
Yeah.
And, just people who are waking themselves.
Yeah, I think people are starting to kind of wake up from this haze that they're in where they're like, right wing bad, left wing good, I think the right wing has proven that there is a bunch of crap on our side, just like there is on the left. I'm an equal opportunity hater of politicians. I'm just so over it. I'm so over being lied to and told they're going to do this or do that. And not only do they not do anything, but when the other side is doing something that is actively harmful, they say nothing. And I'm like, you're worthless, you're worthless, you're worthless. I don't know why you're in this job other than that insider trading is lucrative. It's time for you to go. And I think people are at least seeing that, and I think that's what's really scaring everybody in Washington is that we've kind of realized this is a uniparty and they're all working together because they all are just there to make money. They're not really there to be representatives for us. And now there's this whole other movement that's like, well, screw all of you all. We're going to vote in outsiders. And they are freaked. That's where they're like, oh, these people are violent and hateful. And I'm like, really? Have you talked to any of these people? They're not violent or hateful. They're fed up.
There's something good happening. We just have to keep our attention on it. That doesn't mean don't be aware. It means don't dwell on the bad. Find out what's going on and get right back to the good stuff.
Yeah, there's something, you can be doing. And it's funny because you always get those people in the feed that are just negative no matter what. And I always challenge them. I'm like, well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, other than complaining, what are you doing? Because this does nothing.
Right.
Right. Are you showing any kindness to your, and I'm like, it doesn't, I think people think their purpose in life has to be this huge thing. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. There's the old lady down the street that you see pulling her trash can out and back up. And you watch and you're like, oh my goodness, is she going to fall this week or not? You could be the person that goes down there and takes that trash can down and brings it back up. And if that's the only good you do in the world, that might be enough because you're changing her life. She's going to tell that to somebody else who then is going to be like, wow, I could do something like that for someone. And the ripple effects just go and go and go. So I'm like, don't not do anything just because you don't think you can't do something huge.
Right. Helping someone else other than yourself makes it's amazing. But there's an old story. I'm not up on my set. I was brought up in a not religious family. And I don't have the New Testament as part of my life, let alone the Old Testament. Right. But I know of, just because I've heard them around, and you probably know this because you've studied this kind of thing. And I don't have this verbatim, but somebody said something like, this guy went down to hell at a banquet, and there was all the greatest food in the world, and everybody had a big plate of this. I don't know how many hundreds of people, but they all had spoons and forks that were 10 feet long. But then this guy said in heaven, they also had this banquet, and they had these 10-foot spoons and forks, but each person was feeding the other person. So they could help each other.
Yeah.
Down in hell, they were being selfish and they couldn't eat themselves.
That's quite an image. I love that imagery.
Yeah, I don't have the story verbatim.
It's a good, this idea that we're alone, I think is definitely the big thing that they're pushing, everybody thinks that you should be open and not be just the idea that if you don't embrace one particular thought that they're having, that you're now hateful, you're full of hate, you're just a horrible person who's full of hate and who's ignorant and backward, and I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, you can say that if you want, that doesn't necessarily make it true. And people are now so scared to even bring up the topics. You can't even find people who are like-minded. So I was telling my group it's been a while ago. We went on, it was like the end of January. We went and saw JP Sears. I think that's his name. Yeah. the Awaken with JP guy. We went to Lexington and we saw him, and we hadn't been out in forever. And I knew that every person that was in line with us was there to see him, therefore probably like-minded. And I was giddy. And Don's like, okay, calm down. Because I don't get out a whole lot. I do a lot of this. And so I'm like, we should get that guy's phone number. number. And Don's like, oh my God, please do not ask that. And I'm like, but we could be friends with them. We need friends that think like we do. And he wouldn't let me. He's like, please, Penny, I'm begging you, do not start asking. And then, so I had to talk to the guy. I couldn't stop myself. I turned around and I'm like, hi, are you excited? And he's like, I am. And I'm like, it's so cool to be here with people, that think like we think. He's like, I know. And he was excited as we were. And then we ended up, of course, getting COVID for the second time, or I got it for the second time, Don. And we were down like a month. It was terrible, but it was so worth it to go out and be in a room with people who are all laughing at the same jokes. Who were all kind of looking at each other and nodding. They're like, oh yeah, I've been thinking that. And JP's pretty raw in person. But it was just, we were in a whole room with probably over 100 people who all were enjoying the person who was saying all of the things we all agreed with. And I thought, man, I need to find a group like that where I could have this on a more routine basis, because it really pours back into you. And you stop feeling so isolated and like, like you're having to defend that you're not some kind of hateful lunatic all the time. Especially where, a lot of our families believe. We did a Thursday night broadcast for Thanksgiving just because so many people had said to me that they weren't welcome at their family Thanksgiving because of COVID or politics. And I'm like, it's so, and it was always one way. It wasn't that the conservative people were telling the liberal people they couldn't come. It was the other way around.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
And I'm like, that's cultish.
Because the liberal people for the most part, I mean, the ones that are that way, not all
that would go that far, yeah.
Yeah, but they
right.
they get one side of the story. They don't look for people saying they won't watch Tucker Carlson or
they can't even
any of the they just won't do it. And you and I probably watch both of that, what the other side is thinking and what our viewpoints are thinking, but they don't refuse to do that. They won't, that's why they're so. I
mean, I know people on the right who refuse to listen to anything other than what they're listening to, that there's that whole group that's like, oh yes, Trump's going to retake the office. And I'm like, you guys, it's not going to happen, so you've got that group that's kind of off the deep end. And then you've got
the follow trust in the plan. Those guys, the plan. I don't want to. I wouldn't make, but I haven't seen the plan. I mean, I've seen things like Trump is in control of the Federal Reserve. Trump has the army behind him. He's really running things. This is all part of the. I've never seen any of that happen.
The Hillary's at Guantanamo.
Yeah, that was another one. Yeah,
I'm like, I don't think
trust
so.
in the plan when I see it happen.
Right. But give me some images of Hillary at Guantanamo sunning herself. I mean, I'm going to need a little more proof than just trust the plan. And so there's over the top on both sides, and I think there's truth in some of that on both sides. But I just feel like I know that, and maybe it's the group I run in, but I know that no one who was very liberal told me that they weren't welcome at Thanksgiving. And so, and I know even in our own family, most everyone is on the opposite side of the spectrum. And we had no issue having a Thanksgiving with them. Of course, we didn't talk politics or anything, but we would have never talked politics before anyway. That wasn't a topic. And I'm like, I don't understand why, because we have family that we're not allowed to go see in another state because of who they think we voted for. Like, they don't even know whether we vote. We've never said who we voted for. And I'm like, what? They're like, I just don't think that it would be a good idea for you to stay at our house for Thanksgiving. And I'm like, wow, this is family. And so many people were saying that. And I'm like, okay, guys. And I told Don I was praying about it. And I'm like, because I was looking forward to having Thanksgiving off, and we were doing ours on Friday. And I said, there are people who have no one on Thanksgiving because their families have pushed them out the door because of politics. And I can't bear the idea that they would be alone. It just broke my heart. And so we did this Thanksgiving broadcast, and we kind of were throwing it together because Don's working on the studio, and we, everything was in there, just kind of thrown in there the best we could. But there was one person there among many, but one person said, you know what, I don't I don't have any family, and they were in, I think, South Africa, and we don't do Thanksgiving, but today I felt like I was your family. And I'm like,
Oh man.
that's it. For that one person, it was
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's something you can do. There's some little thing. Someone's feeling the same way you are, and you can kind of make them not feel other. Um, and I'll keep telling people, just because this person has, you've got some crazy people out there that you're still going to have to deal with, who believe some things that you don't agree with, and you don't have to validate that. You don't have to, what is that they call, affirm that. But you can still be kind to that person. So if you told me, you're like, Penny, I believe I can fly, and I would say, well, Neal, I believe you can do a lot of things, but I don't think flying is one of them. But you would still be invited to Thanksgiving,
Right. And maybe show me a video of you flying it.
Right.
Talk.
I'm gonna need a little bit more. Just a
Yeah.
little, like, could you like take a running leap off a curb and just show me a little bit?
Right. And
Here's a video.
even
I
those
see it
can be
coming.
faked. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to close out, guys. It's 9 o'clock, and we've had Neal for 2 hours plus here, and it has just been so fun. I did put your the real Neal Fox. I put it in the chats on both the multi chat and then on Rumble. And I'll put your links in the descriptions too, so folks can see those once the videos go up. And so, what are you? Do you have something you're working on now?
Well, I just finished creating that course. It took me 8 months. The course, and I actually just finished it maybe a week ago.
Yeah, it's just gone up in the last week or so.
I mean, that took me a long time, because there's 9 hours of video, 45 lessons.
You charged way too little for it, just so you know. You should have priced that way up.
You know what? My wife keeps telling me that, and now the price is going up in January.
Yeah.
The price right now, if anybody goes to allmusicmatters.thinkific.com. And allmusicmatters.thinkific.com. They can see the trailer that's on the course. So if they want this course, if they're a musician or a songwriter and they want to learn, right from, starts from the beginners, so right from the very beginning. If they now and January 1st, so it's December 31st, it's at a ridiculous rate. So yeah, it'll go up to what's more normal on January 1st.
Kind of an introductory price.
Very.
That's a lot of time to put in.
I'm not a great marketing person, I hate marketing.
Hard.
I hate selling myself.
I do too.
And
it's so hard.
It's just not where the interest is.
It feels
like I'd rather be creating a show YouTube. But because there's no record companies selling, doing the marketing anymore for us. I have to do it myself with a lot of help from my wife. And, sometimes I price things way too low.
Well, it's funny, because people, I think, assume that if you're making music or you're writing books or whatever, you've got that promotional end from the company. And what they don't realize is that, I mean, unless you're a Dean Koontz or a, Beyonce or something, they don't do any of your promotions for you. You have to do all of that. So, I'm like, look, go for indie publishing your music and indie writing and stuff, because you're going to have to do all of the marketing of your product anyway. So why cut these big publishers a check for it? Because they're not doing it.
And so I'm gonna watch it so I can sell some albums.
Yeah,
it's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea, and I think you've got stuff up on Amazon, right? Don't you have stuff up on Apple?
Yeah. My music's on Apple. I have videos on Rumble and YouTube. The only reason I don't like Rumble is on Rumble, because I just really do a little bit there.
Yeah.
But on YouTube, even I mean, they're actually taking subscribers away every week.
You're kidding me.
No, I have proof of that. And if you, I've seen some of the bigger channels losing 100,000 subscribers overnight. I'm not a big channel. I have 100 subscribers, but they are dwindling them down every week. It stayed the same for years now, And I've talked
Yeah,
to
people
some
aren't just
people on my
suddenly en
mailing list.
masse cleaning out their subscriptions. That's BS.
Yeah, especially they subscribe to you because they like you. They want to see what
Right.
you're doing. It's hiding my stuff. So if anybody wants to see me on YouTube, they gotta look for me and then the notification and all that. But what I was bringing up is the thing I like about YouTube is they have like a whole album that I did, like the Unhinged album.
Hmm.
I could make a playlist of it, and
Yes.
it'll back exactly in the order of the album that I
Right.
wanted it. You can't do that on Rumble yet. They're all
They're
single
supposed
things.
to be working on it. So I had contacted them and I'm like, look, I need playlists because I have like my tea time talks that are life from a near death perspective, right? Those are completely different than my Thursday night live streams where we just talk about current events and, and then at 10 o'clock it gets weird. But, because we can go forever. But those are two completely different things and I can't make playlists. And so it was supposed to come in 2022. I messaged them. I'm like, hey, we really need playlists. I need to be able to sort this out without having to manage multiple channels. And they're just not there yet. And you're definitely not making. I think I've made in the year that I've been on Rumble, I've been on so like 15 months. I think I've made all of $35. And I have 1,000 plus subscribers, but that took a while. I just started my YouTube channel right at a month ago, and I'm at 600 already. So that's moving a lot quicker until they see more of my content and start following
Yeah,
me down.
the AI's got to flag you. They got
Right.
I swear, no matter I could put out something that I think should have totally gone viral. Like with 8,500 subscribers, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's still a better platform. If
it is. Oh, we lost him. There, his computer died. Well, hold on. Let's text him and let him know he died so he doesn't keep going. God love him. He's just such a sweet guy and so real. Hold on. Your computer died. LOL. Yeah, it will grow. It's just slower on Rumble. It's definitely going quicker on. I mean, it took me 15 months to get to 1,100 on Rumble, and in 28 days, I think I was at 600 on YouTube. So it's moving. It's okay. We were going to close out anyway. I messaged him. Hold on. No sweat. But anyway, isn't he sweet? I hate that the sound wasn't great, and maybe we can figure out a wired connection for him and have him back on because he's just delightful, don't you think? I just really enjoyed. I feel like he's, what did he say, 70, 75? I had a ball, great conversation. Thanks for having me on. Very sweet. I feel like, here you've got a guy who's been doing music since he was 14 years old, and he said he was on so he wrote all these jingles, and I'm dying to find the jingles. Now I'm going to have to go look. I'll see if he can give me some links. Good night, Frugal Tinkerer. Much love to you guys. Good night, Free to Create. Yeah, you guys are just wonderful. I just was such a delight to have him on, and I love talking to people who have more experience in life than me. I feel like so many people who are young have platforms, and I feel like we're missing out on this library of wisdom that our older population has, and that they don't get this platform. I'm so wanting to have more and more people that are older than me on because they have a lot to say and they have a lot of experience. They've seen. I mean, if you think about it, how much has somebody that is in their 70s seen in their lifetime? I'm looking at just what I've seen in my lifetime. Just technology. We didn't have computers when I was a kid. I think I was in 7th or 8th grade when the first computers came in, and all they taught us how to do was like MS-DOS / or something like that. And then it was I'm trying to think. And then we could like put certain things in and we could make a face out of characters on the keyboard. That was it. That was the extent of it. And we were learning to type, and that was all there was to it. What I actually said was thanks for having me on, but yeah, it worked so well. I got it. And so I feel like um I feel like the people who should have more of a voice are having less and less of a voice, and I'm not okay with that. And I feel like we're not going to be able to go forward without that kind of wisdom. So, if you guys have suggestions for anybody over 60 that you'd like to have on to talk to, I would absolutely reach out to them because I think it is important. And I want to hear what they think about how things are going. Because, yes, we can hear from people who are in their 30s, but when you're listening to somebody who's in their 70s, they have just such a rich experience to pull from, and they really are able to kind of see that trajectory over a huge amount of time that a 30-year-old can't, and they can see how that sort of thinking fell off and caused problems, in this situation and that situation. I think they bring a lot to the table that we don't appreciate. That was part of, when all of the people in the nursing homes, uh, granted these guys are, very nimble and not nursing home bound, but when all of the COVID stuff was happening and the people, government was putting sick people into nursing homes, 50%, over 50% of the deaths were in nursing homes, and it just broke my heart. It crushed me because I'm like a library of experience and wealth of information, you know, dies over and over and over and over again. And it's like, oh, they were old people. They were going to die anyway. And I just think that's heartbreaking. And we've always kind of had that Western culture where we don't value people who are older than us, like you would see maybe in some Asian cultures where they're really highly revered. And I would like to see us turn the tide on that because we do need that wisdom and we do need that um, just kind of middle of the road sensibility that they're able to bring because they've weathered so many things. His advice on marriage was just wonderful. And how do you have a long happy marriage? You don't think of ways to get out of it. You determine that you're going to stay in and you're going to work hard and you're going to learn to love this person past the surface, down deep and when it's hard and just beautiful, beautiful truths. And I'm just so thankful that he came on and he shared those with us. And thank you for everybody that showed up. We had a good crowd tonight. Um, we had Mrs. Neal Fox, or her name. I didn't catch it in the feed. We had Debbie John 68. I didn't get to talk to her. RJ. Um, I'm trying to look at who else was here that I missed. And you guys noticed on the intro video, if you watched on Rumble, on the intro video, there is a credits page at the end that is thanking people who have made donations to the channel to help us cover the costs. I so appreciate that. I'll put links for that in if you feel so compelled. AJ asks, have you heard of AFLN, Penny? I know the woman Nicole Siratek who founded it. She has saved many. What is no, I have not heard of that. What is that? Hi, Tony, one saving 3 gaming. Peace and love to you. Elizabeth says, this is the first live I've caught with you. Thank you for being, you guys is the nighttime easier for you? Is the 2 o'clock in the afternoon hard? Um, it occurred to me when I picked that time that I think when I looked at the demographics, it was all people over 60. So probably a lot of people who are retired or maybe working part-time or home during the day. But if evenings are better for you, we can absolutely do evenings. Tuesday night's a good night. There's not a huge competition for live videos on Rumble on Tuesday nights. So it does allow me to have some people watching. But hey, AJ, send me who AFLN is. What is, if I Google that, will I be amazed at AFLN? Got AFLN clothing. What was the person's name? AFLN. Nicole Siratek. Nicole Siratek. I've not heard of this person. I did, American Frontline Nurses. Yeah. So I am represented by American Frontline attorneys in my, I don't know what they're doing with it, but I signed paperwork with their attorneys. They are representing me against the pharmacies who refuse to fill prescriptions for my hydroxychloroquine. So I do have some connection there. I could reach out to them, but if you know somebody and you have a direct connect, definitely shoot that to me. I'm going to type in my email here. Witthealth. And you guys, you can find all my information on my website. I never know if it's look, isn't that funny that I can never remember it? I just never know if the ING's on it. Witthealthcoach at Gmail. Coach. H at G. I get it. .com. There you go. You can always mail me there. know why that's not going through. Okay, so I wanted to make sure I got all the comments because you guys were. It's a little harder to follow the chat for sure. Oh, I can't see it. I can't back it up. Sorry, guys. It's harder to keep up with the chat when you have a guest for sure. But we haven't had many guests. We had Melissa McAtee. Oh gosh. Is her name Naomi? Tell him it's me. I'm free to create Naomi. Yeah, you adjusted his heat for him. So sweet. I forgot what I was going to tell you now. It's gone. AJ says she's wonderful. She helps many, many people, I'm sure. Yeah, American Frontline Nurses have done a lot of advocacy. And I had actually reached out to Bonds for the Win, and I never could get hold of anybody there. They're the group that is helping parents go after the bonds of school board members or school board people who hold positions on school boards. You can go after their bond if they're doing something that is inappropriate, and they actually have to end up paying whatever you sue them for. The bondholder does, and so the bondholder will back that person off. AJ says, "Oh, that's okay. Love you lots, Penny. Always love listening to you." Yeah, so you guys let me know if leave me some feedback on YouTube and Rumble. Let me know if evenings work better for tea time chats. I try to keep it's hard. I did this one combined. Normally I would just do this for the Thursday night podcast on COVID-19 Warrior, but since Neal does so many videos that whether he realizes or not, are spiritual in nature. They just are. When you watch The Good in Us, I mean, if that's not just the message that God gives us about loving each other, I'm going to close out with that one. I'm guessing it's going to get me a copyright strike on YouTube, so I'll probably close YouTube, but I'm guessing the first one may have gotten me that too. So I'll have to resolve that with them so they don't take my video down. But I may be able to just to go in and edit that part out. We'll see. But thank you guys for joining me. It's 9:15. We will be back here on Thursday night at 7 o'clock for COVID-19 Warrior. So if you're watching on YouTube and you want to come join for current events and discussion of various shenanigans that are going on, we start at 7 o'clock. We go until the rant section runs out of energy. Sometimes that's 9 o'clock. Sometimes that's 2 a.m. It just depends. And you can come and go as it works for you. But we will be talking to you guys soon. Thank you for kind of hanging in there. That's exactly right, Tony. Tony says, love one another just like Jesus loved us. Yes, even when we didn't deserve it. That's hard, huh? But thank you for putting up with the sound issues. I know those were rough. I'll see if I can't work that out. I think it might have been on Neal's end where he was not wired in. Because I think our sound on this side was fine, but we're going to run into stuff like that. We'll work through it. But thank you guys for joining you. Love you, whole big bunch.